And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Alien Spaceship stream. You could be watching from anywhere around the country or the world, and I really appreciate every single one of you coming to you from the Spaceship Studios from a galaxy far, far away. Alright, so hope everybody's been doing well. I'll be switching over to the other screen. Just a moment. Alright, make sure y'all could see me. Alright. Hello, it is me, Alien Spaceship. I hope everybody's been having a good day and having a good evening. It was a really cool stream yesterday, and there wasn't really any trials today. Allegedly, there's gonna be some tomorrow, but there was something with Karen Reed that I didn't see. I was today what I did, I was looking at making sure the internet and all was working and functioning, because yesterday we had a lot of that stream was we were restreaming was really intense, definitely. So and everything, and it did. There were some hiccups, but it did pretty well considering the circumstances. Millions and millions of people were seeing the funeral, while we were watching it on the other stream. So yeah, now what we'll be doing tonight is we're looking at some other historical things, similar stuff, a little bit different, but similar stuff to what we usually do, and just a different variation of it. And now what we'll be doing is going over here. Alright, so this is the Spaceship Cat. Shout out to the Spaceship Cats. Alright, so now we're getting into this. Now I want to see what the hurricanes and stuff are doing. We'll check that as we enter into different parts of the stream. Alright, so let's say right from 3 hours ago. Gabrielle rapidly intensifies into major hurricane. Two other disturbances being watched. Gabriella is now a major hurricane, but there are also two other areas where watching closely for tropical development in the Atlantic this week. Here's the latest forecast. Okay. Hurricane Gabriel underwent rapid intensification starting Sunday before reaching Category 4 intensity Monday afternoon. The storm is expected to remain a major hurricane into midweek, as a pair of other areas that could develop later this week are gathering more interest, more active in the Atlantic basin. Alright, Gabriella intensifying. Gabriella became the second hurricane of 2025 in the Atlantic hurricane season after late Sunday afternoon. After a long battle with stronger wind shear, the dry air last week, the storm has moved into favorable conditions. In only 24 hours, the storm nearly doubled in strength from the winds of 75 miles per hour to Category 4 storm winds of 140 miles per hour. Gabriella attempted to follow in Hurricane Aaron's footsteps from earlier this summer, making the jump from tropical storm to Category 3 hurricane in 24 hours, and from the tropical storm to Category 4 in under 30 hours. The two storms both underwent massive rapid intensification. They have been only hurricanes so far for the 2025 hurricane season as of late September. Fortunately, Gabriella is taking a sharp dog leg turn to the east, carrying it safely away from Bermuda and the U.S. However, Gabriella is generally high surf and a rip current threat not just in Bermuda but also along parts of the U.S. East Coast. From North Carolina to New England, this rip current danger could last throughout parts of Tuesday before winding down. Looks like it's heading towards Spain and is heading towards France. Scared. Hello, Lori. Good evening. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. All right. So it looks like this hurricane is. Oh, hello, Bob. Welcome. All right. This hurricane is going towards France. All right. Two other areas to watch. Easternmost area of the National Hurricane Center is also keeping an eye on another tropical wave about half between Africa and the Lesser Antilles. The last wave could take a path somewhat similar to Gabriella, but it's unclear whether. Yeah, scared. Unclear whether it will become a threat to Bermuda next week. Westernmost area, another area to watch, is much closer to Leeward Islands, where it could bring some increased showers on Tuesday. It's expected to turn generally north of Hispaniola and could undergo some development late this week somewhere near the Bahamas and Bermuda Triangle. It's too soon to tell if this system may eventually threaten parts of the U.S. coast or simply curl northeast away from the U.S., as many recent storms have done this season. Yeah, shout out the chat. Thank y'all. All right. Gabriella became the first active hurricane tropical storm in 20 days, since Ferdinand was designated to post-tropical cyclone on August 28. Even though we are in the past statistical peak of the hurricane season, most storms have curled out to sea so far. Don't let your guard down yet. Now the time to make sure you have at least all your supplies in order in case the late season hurricane comes to be a threat. Good to see you, Abs. Welcome to the chat. Hope you're doing well. Okay. And something that's a common question amongst the UFO communities is about orbs and UFOs. I'll distinguish the difference about that right now. And the answer is no. Orbs and UFOs are not the same thing, though an orb can sometimes be classified as a UFO. Hello, Big Horn Mac. Welcome. Alright. Hello, alien. White orbs that take off like backwards meteor sounds like a fizzing, popping noise. Leaves a purple green mist in the sky. Scared. Okay, thank you. Big Horn Mac. Alright. And white horn. Just say it again. The white orbs that take off like backwards meteors sounds like fuzzing, popping noises. Leaves a purple green mist in the sky. Okay, thank you. All right. Though an orb can be sometimes be classified as a UFO unidentified aerial phenomenon. UAP is sometimes any object in the sky that cannot be immediately identified, while some unexplained orbs may fall under this category. The term orb can also refer to things that are easily identified. Ab says, I'm trying to stay here and not do anything yet because something's going on with my psychopath in max security. Okay, understood. And glad you're here with us. And yeah, thank you for the update. It's kind of like a shark lurking around. It sounds like of what you're describing, and hopefully he stays in there. Well, actually, there may be people that may not know this, and just putting in layman's terms about why the difference between both of them. All right. Orbs. The term orb can refer to several different phenomena, most of which are not mysterious. Camera artifacts are mysterious. But defeat. A Hellfire missiles were cooked. Yeah, that is true, Bob. That our Hellfire missiles were cooked in that situation. Yes. Ab says, do you see the new case on Law and Crime where the dude offed the woman and had her 13-year-old? He was convicted of murder prior. This was what happens when you let them out, man. Abs, I did not see this case, but that is a very horrid, disgusting, disgraceful case. And thank you for letting me know about that. And I do agree that is what happens when they're released. They're just going to do the same thing they did before. The justice system is effing failing us so hard lately. I'm so angry. Oh yeah, on top of the division and stuff that's going on in the country, I do agree with you about these certain people being released when they shouldn't be, as I do believe people that will do certain things like that will just do it again, and that's terrible. What happened to that mother and kid, and because it's threatening people. We want to have a safe, proper society for everybody. It's just when we have times when things are too dogmatic, when people don't stay hungry and stay foolish, they'll get in dogmatic status quo type thinking and be rigid and not be open to different ways they should be doing things. Scared. Alright, camera artifacts. The most common orbs are simply an optical phenomenon caused by the camera's flash reflecting off airborne particles like dust, pollen, or moisture. Drones with drone technology become more affordable. Many sightings of glowing nighttime orbs are actually drones with LED lights. Biological essentials. Some paranormal believers view orbs spiritual entities like ghosts or angels, though this is not a scientific explanation. Ab says, it's so sad if someone murders once. Obviously, they aren't above deleting killing again if they get away with it. Absolutely awful. Yeah, because there's no consequence for the action. Like, if they're not punished for it or prevented, even if they're punished for it, they may not really care and just do it anyway. So I do think that people will have to take that into consideration. Why they shouldn't have these certain people released because they'll just do it again. Yeah. It's like they go in and they go out. Some orbs could be fabric of versus bust out by all the nuke tests and remain temporal. Yeah, very interesting, Bob. That's an interesting perspective. Thank you. UFOs, UAPs. The term UFO, unidentified flying object, is a broad and neutral classification for aerial sightings that cannot be identified. After the initial investigation, the U.S. government now prefers the term UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Identified sightings. The vast majority of reported UFOs are later identified as mundane objects or phenomena such as aircraft, weather balloons, satellites, or bright astronomical objects. Unidentified sightings. Okay. He claimed it was self-defense, but how do you self-defend yourself against a 13-year-old who's much smaller than you? We could probably considering your 44-old man. Yeah. Considering those circumstances, it sounds very, wimpy of him to say that he had to do that. Another thing is he's not taking personal accountability because he put himself in that situation in the first place, but he can't own up to what he did, and he's trying to get himself out of it. It is certainly, it's cringe. A small percentage of UFO reports remain unexplained, with some showing very interesting apparent maneuvers. It is important to note that unidentified does not automatically mean extraterrestrial. Orb. UFOs, some highly unusual, unexplained aerial orbs, have been formally classified as UAPs. Oh, hello, True Crime. It's been a while. Welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Orb UFOs. Some highly unusual, unexplained aerial orbs have been formally classified as UAPs by government agencies. For example, the Pentagon has released videos of metallic, spherical objects that exhibit strange flight behavior. All right. Ab says, so if I fly in the air in disguise and can't be identified, I'd be considered a UFO. Nice, I'll keep that in the noggin, yeah. Yeah, that's true. If you fly in the sky, unidentified, you'll be considered a UFO, and the YouTubers are making videos about this strange unidentified flying object in the sky. Because they'll be thinking that it could be an angel, because that's what you are, Abs. They could think that it's an aircraft flying. They will come up with all kinds of different theories. It would be like Boozy Einstein, constant state that's self-aware. Oh, thank you, Bob. Thank you. Ab says, I'm actually serious, though. The justice system is really pissing me off. I wish there was just a flat rate for murder. If you delete someone, kill someone, then you're automatically locked up for life. Yeah. Especially these type of murderers and these P-files and stuff like that, yeah. And like if something's like self-defense is different, but that what you're speaking of is like not good. Like they're going to just do it again. And True Crime says, I totally agree with you, Abby, by the way. True Crime says, been busy on TikTok with the baby. Abs, it is a broken system. Yeah, it is a broken system. And our country seems like it's going on a broken route. Yeah. Orb. UFOs. Some highly unusual, unexplained aerial orbs have been formally classified as UAPs by government agencies. For example, the Pentagon has released videos of metallic objects that exhibit strange flying behavior. Zero says, I see our upgrades are working very well, alien spaceship. Is there something that you require for that spaceship that I've forgotten? Yes, we have been running Everything's been running well at the moment. I think there was something. Let's see. There's something simple. There was this light system that's supposed to turn flash red down the corridor of the spaceship. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. So that is what. Only thing is the light system. We just need some more light bulbs there. This is put in layman's terms. But besides that, everything, as far as I know, I'll check with Timu Frank the alien to see if anything else was missing. But that's the only thing I could think of. Besides that, everything is 100%. Thanks, Zero. It is self. It is self defense is different, or protecting a child disabled. Yes, yes. And True Crime says first degree. Absolutely, yes. Yes, the read alert system. Yeah, the red alert system. Yes. That's true. Thanks, Zero. All right, Bob says, what's more important, having a liquid that can burn through anything or having a container? That is a good question. Because if you have a liquid that can burn through anything, the container might be redundant. But you need it depends if the container can hold anything. If the container has a resistance and it can hold anything, you would need it to try to contain the uncontainable. Many states are pushing for death penalty on child rape. I support that. Yes, I do too. Yes. And Lori said it got woke then broke. Yeah, absolutely. And some highly unusual unexplained orbs have been formally classified as UAPs. Often, and these things have been seen for thousands of years before we were here. In ancient Rome and different places, they saw stuff like this. It's in the 1400s in Germany, they saw them. It's not a new concept. They always were here. Explanation. Often normal camera artificial artifact or a man-made drone, an orb-shaped object that defies conventional explanation, any unexplainable aerial object or phenomenon. Okay, I'll attach it to your captain's chair as you left peaky button since there isn't anything present there. Oh, scared. Thank you, Zero. Terrestrial dust, light, pollen, moisture, man-made devices, unknown subject going can be terrestrial, man-made aircraft or satellite unknown. Behavior appears stationary, moves predictably with camera, exhibits unusual flight patterns or hovers above, varies widely depending on nature it is of the sighting. Visibility most often appears in photographs or videos, sometimes seen with the naked eye, captured on military sensors. Can be seen with the naked eye with cameras on the radar. Alright. Now that is some stuff about the UFOs. Bob says, well, I know the spirit world exists. I've seen it, and you don't normally see it the same with UFOs or orbs. Yeah, and I've heard that psychedelics, although I don't recommend taking those, or like mushrooms and stuff like that, they can, like for instance, Lori and I, we've talked about how the ancient peoples did things with, like, say, paganism, and they would take those things, would have these spiritual experiences, and they would be able to see different realms or be in touch with nature more. I believe those things bring people into that realm where these beings are. And, like, for instance, the shamans and even the natives of America, they were known to use tobacco and different things to go transcend and see stuff for spiritual enlightenment and things like that. Zero says, so just hallways and bridge for the lights, although the sound will be broadcasted in all rooms. Yes, Zero, precisely. Thank you. Yes. Well done. Ab says, hey, I take Curanite and I'm fine. Of course, it's administered, but still, if I don't get high, I'll probably die, so. Well, yeah, and yes, absolutely. You are here with us, and that is good. Thank you for your take on that, Abs. And yeah, so certainly in the spiritual realm, they would look different than the would in our realm, but I do believe they come from that side over to our side. Okay, and something quite curious. Did pirates ever see UFOs? Oh, hello, Moki. A good evening. I just made orange chicken from Real Good Company, and it smells like sweaty taint. Scared. Bob said it's all so periodical. It's mirror world, and sometimes we see the mirror, and sometimes we don't. It it's it's relative to the observer, just like the double slit experiment. Oh, okay, Bob. Thank you. Bob, when it's observed, it's different. Thank you. Thank you, Zero. Trust me, the smell is really putting me off for me. Yeah, thanks, Zero, for that. Thanks for the advice. It is possible that pirates saw what we would consider now classified as UFOs, or more accurately, identified aerial phenomena. Okay, I did not look at the news today. I was doing stuff with the systems here and family. I did not see that. We were going to look into that. Absolutely. Thank you, Moki. I was completely off the grid today. And Zero has Moki the extra order of special lights. Yeah, Smokey. So on the spaceship, I ordered a bunch of lights for the hallways and stuff. So for the hazard lights and things like that. So Zero got the special lights. Also, sightings in Norway. Thank you, Moki, very much. All right. Bob said it may change from particle to a wave at the attention. So humans thought of observation. There is power in the same with intent. Oh, thank you, Bob. Thank you. Or more accurately, identified aerial phenomena. The open ocean provides an unobstructed view of the sky, but during the golden age of piracy, roughly 1650 to 1730, celestial and atmospheric events that we can easily explain today were often seen as mysterious omens and strange phenomena. For a pirate on the ship in the 17th to 18th century, many natural occurrences could have been mistaken for something otherworldly. Oh, yes. Yes, they do make it look pretty. Yes. Fact, Smoky. Meteors. A bright meteor fireball could appear as a brilliant, fast moving object in the night sky. 1561 famous woodcut depicted a mass sighting over Nuremberg that is also attributed to Sundog. Witnesses believed it was a celestial battle. Comets. The sudden appearance of comet would have been deeply unsettling for a crew with no longer of astronomy and could have been seen as portent of doom. We required to be quantum at all moments of existence. Facts. Facts. Atmospheric optics. Complex optical effects like sundogs are rare phenomenon, including atmospheric ice crystals and ball lightning. This extremely rare, unexpected weather phenomena could manifest as glowing orb floating through the air. In Boston, 1639, John Winthrop, governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony, recorded an account of bright, strange light seen by three men over the muddy river. The light flamed and changed shape, and the witness mysteriously found that their boat had been moved without their knowledge, an incident some have called the earliest recorded abductions narrative. So some orbs are organic and some contain, like Ryan Graves saw, a sphere with a cube inside of it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Roman sightings. The Roman historian Livy wrote 218 BCE about phantom ships seen gleaming in the sky, while in 474 BCE, Plutarch wrote of a blind vessel shaped object that appeared during the battle. Okay, thank you, Monkey. I'm about to look at it in a moment. Sea monsters versus sky mysteries. While pirates were certainly superstitious and shared many nautical legends, lore tended to focus more on dangers of the sea than mysterious sightings and UFOs and tales in the future. The Flying Dutchman, a spectral ghost ship that was an omen of bad luck. Sea monsters, including giant squids, kraken, massive sea serpents, and whales. Haunted locations, ghostly figures and apparitions associated with famous pirates and lost treasure. The Bogosphere is now said to be a carbon dated of 1200,000 BC. Thank you. Wow. Ultimately, the lack of modern recording equipment means we have no definite answer what their view AP accounts were. And given their long history at the sea, they witnessed celestial bodies and atmospheric phenomena that they would have perceived as unidentifiable or supernatural. I saw another story on the Bogosphere, scientists saying it's very old. Okay. We're going to see what that is. Yeah, great minds think alike. Yes. And yes, the recent incident where flights were delayed at the Uenberg airport rather than full shutdown. This occurred following the unauthorized drone sighting in early September 25, while not on an airport closure. Such as incidents cause significant disruption. However, you may also be recalling the large-scale drones disruption that occurred in Copenhagen, Denmark on September 22, 25, which did result in an airport closure. Edinburgh, Scotland, September 25. Incident: flights were held at Edinburgh Airport on September 25, 25 after a drone was detached in the exclusion zone. It was in Denmark. Okay. All you need for drones is a good slingshot. Yeah. Scared. Effect: the presence of the drone caused delays as authorities investigated the incident. An airport spokesperson emphasized that drone operators must be aware of their responsibilities and potential penalties for violating flight restriction zones. Copenhagen, Denmark, September 25. Incident: Copenhagen Airport closed its airspace to air traffic. Multiple drones were sighted nearby. Effect: the closure diverted dozens of flights to other airports and caused significant disruption from passengers. Danish police. And like from today. Oh, yes. Yes, okay. They diverted dozens of flights to other airports and caused significant disruption passengers. Police opened an investigation into sightings. A similar incident also occurred at Oslo Airport around the same time. Drones, quotations, drones. Yeah, exactly, but they probably could be something else. Like my brethren flying around airspace. Why these incidents are treated seriously. Unauthorized drones near airport are major safety hazards for aircraft during the takeoff and landing. Collision result: even a small drone can cause catastrophic damage if it collides with a plane's engine or cockpit. Serious disruption. As demonstrated by these events, a single rogue drone can force an airport to temporarily suspend all flights operations, impacting thousands of passengers and costing airlines millions. Increasing threat. With the increasing availability of the drone technology, airports and regulators are working to implement better systems for detection and countermeasures. Hobbes says it seems logical and energy so powerful that it cannot be contained would need different psychics to contain it with the use of magnets to contain plasma. Okay, I will. Yes, on September 22, 25, Copenhagen Airport was forced to suspend all flights due to sightings of the three large unidentified drones. The incident caused a significant disruption, leading to numerous flights being diverted or canceled. Here's the key details of the event. Time of closure. Operations at Copenhagen Airport were halted around 8:30 p.m. local time. Duration of distribution. The airport remained close for nearly 4 hours, reopening in the early hours of September 23. Impact. Drones of flights were either rerouted to other airports or canceled. Although the airport eventually reopened, further delays and cancellations were expected. Investigation. Danish police launched investigation into the sightings, which promoted large police presence near the airport. Related incidents. A similar separate drone incident occurred on the same evening at Oslo Airport in Norway. Bob said drones, so many drones, about I need to start carrying my shotgun in my truck. Scared. Yep. The occurrence is part of a wider trend of increasing drone-related security in Northern Europe and other parts of the world. Let's see. Any pictures of them? Oh. Images? Not really any images of them. But yeah, so that is what's going on. Sometimes, and they aren't doing anything about it. Wow. That is some wild stuff. Trying to use their sonar to try to figure out what's going on, what could be happening. I mean, that is something extremely important to do. Okay, Moki, I would like you to send it. Thank you. The Bogosphere is a mysterious metallic orb that was observed flying erratically before landing in Buga, Colombia. Oh yeah, I did a video about this. In March 25, the object has sparked significant speculation, including theories of extraterrestrial origin. Okay, thank you. All right, and let's see this. All right, I'll show you all. All right, here's a pic of the drones that are currently flying over Copenhagen. Yeah, that is very spooky. That looks very haunting. It looks like a ghost or something like that. That is a big drone. I wonder if they could take a flamethrower. Oh yeah, I wondered that myself. Yeah. And thank you, Moki, for the image. Yeah, this is the one of the drones from Copenhagen. Okay. And green is friendly. Yeah, green is friendly. Scared. It looks kind of similar to. There's an incident in South America where they're being attacked by Green Goblin type alien looking things in South America, and that looks kind of similar to what they were seeing in South America. Very interesting. All right, so the theory is that the Booga orb is 12,560 years old. Radiocarbon dating. Social media and unconfirmed reports have suggested that a radiocarbon analyst performed by the University of Georgia Center for Applied Isotope Studies dated the resin from the sphere 12,560 years old before the present. This would place the object's origin around the year the Younger Dryas, a period of climate change at the late end of the Ice Age. Mainstream scientists have not endorsed this finding. The validity of using the carbon dating technique associated with a sphere is debated. Carbon-14 dating is used in organic materials, but I that is really incredible that it's that old. Wow. I remember that sphere. It was something quite incredible. That's certainly like an alien craft of some kind, some sort of alien orb. Unusual characteristic theories. Unusual construction. The sphere shows no signs of welds or joints, suggesting it was not manufactured using conventional human technology. Material properties. The object has reportedly changed in weight and exhibits unexplained physical phenomena. Some researchers have suggested it possesses an internal network of engineered components that manipulate gravity. Etched symbols. Its surface features mysterious symbols and carvings that resemble ancient writings, which some believe may contain messages for humanity. Environmental effects. The spot where the sphere landed reportedly caused the surrounding soil and plants to be deleted, die off, with no signs of regrowth months later. Response to chance. In August 25, the viral videos circulated claiming the sphere showed electromagnetic surges and vibrational responses when exposed to Sanskrit mantras. While some researchers have pointed out its strange properties, evidence origins remain skeptical. Some are skeptical about it. The internal structure, X-ray scans. Exactly. What did trees ever do to them except give them life? Exactly. Right. Internal structures. X-ray scans reportedly revealed a dense central chip surrounded by the smaller spheres and fibers like filaments. Advanced physics model. A paper published in July 25 proposed a unified theoretical model to explain the sphere's anomalous properties such as negative mass effect and endothermic cooling, low frequency. The sphere has also been reported to emit low frequency signs in 2 to 3 hertz range suggests it could function as a receiver or transmitter of cosmic signals. All right. The period it came from was from the Younger Dryas period. The Younger Dryas was a period of abrupt and severe cooling in the northern hemisphere that interrupted the overall warnings. Buddhasphere, Naztec mummies, crazy stuff. Yeah, absolutely, Moki. All right, the Younger Dryas was a period of abrupt and severe cooling of the northern hemisphere that interrupted overall warming trend in the end of the last ice age, approximately 12,900 to 1170 700 years ago. It is considered the most well studied example of abrupt climate change on Earth. A big freeze, a period began on as a planet was already warming off the last galactical maximum after an initial warning phase known as the Bulling Alred. Northern hemisphere started plunging back into a near glacial condition. Bob says it has to be dark matter that contains the power of the Big Bang. Oh, yeah. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, if y'all have seen Transformers, it reminds me of the cube from that movie. That's what this object reminds you of. There is this cube that can create and worlds and things like that, and it could bring different people back and stuff like that. I mean, the robots. It could create the robot. It was like essential for life. This thing reminds you of that cube. Abrupt onset and this cooling happened with startling speed in Greenland. Average annual temperatures drop as much as 10 Celsius in just a few decades. The cold lasted for about 1,200 years before temperatures reversed quickly, returning to the warming trend and continued into the current epoch and the Holocene. Global unequal impact. While the cooling was most severe in Greenland, Europe, and North America, the effects was global. Our southern hemisphere experienced warming during the phenomenon known as polar Esau. The Younger Dryas, with the extinction of many Northern American megafauna during the mastodons and mammoths. What in the world is megafauna? That's funny. Fiona or whatever. Let's see. The largest animals that roam the earth. That's what it means. Woolly mammoths, mastodons, and giant ground sloths. Let's see what that looks like. Sloths are cute. Scared. Yeah, they used to have animals that were much bigger than the ones that we have now. Okay. Let's say the giant sloth. Okay, that was the giant sloth. So they look kind of like bears. Big suck, huh? Calling me back to chat, I see. Yeah. Yeah. Bob says if we run out of dark matter, then we would have the big suck and Big Bang would end and not expand. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, Abby, you do not suck. That is true. Abby's awesome. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Abs. You're talking about something else, I thought. That's what I first thought it was. A big suck. I'm scared. Yeah, we summoned Abby when we talked about the big suck a thon. Yeah, they look like bears. Those. Okay. All right. Now, that is some information about the time period the Booga orb originated from, allegedly. Yeah, big suck. A big tight seal. Suction tight seal, and it just has the most satisfying pop when it's done. Right. So yeah, that is information about the Buga sphere and what it was about and the time period that allegedly it came from. So some sort of alien type craft, and I'll show you all more about the Buga sphere. All right, so that is a diagram of the Bugosphere and what's inside of it. And you got this right here that looks like a chip. Yeah, very interesting. Kind of reminds you of the Harry Potter orbs. Yes, it was before the wheel. I'm scared. Yeah, it must be a helper for the mind. It's interesting. It has these different sentient consciousness in it. Okay, so now we're going to go here. Let's see. Going into this other part right here. Yes, they have X-rated, I think, but you certainly need to know what's inside of it. I do agree, Bob. And Ab says, when I see Buga, I think of Beluga, the YouTuber. He's funny as hell, and he with his discard videos. Okay, interesting, Abs. Thank you for letting us know. Yeah, Buga Wheel. Let's see this one. See the most famous pieces of art. Okay, we talked about some of the UFOs. Let's see about this. I'm just curious what the most famous pieces of art are. Let's see. Now, this is pretty obvious about the most famous paintings that they have in the world. So we've talked recently about different paintings from the past and how they're able to stay through into this time period. And this is just a list of pretty much straightforward about what they were. Okay. And some of the most famous pieces of art in the world are renewed for their technique, mystery, and cultural significance. Here's some of the most recognized, celebrated masterpieces in history. There's the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, perhaps the most famous painting in the world. The 16th century portrait is celebrated for its subject's enigmatic expression and Da Vinci's masterful use of the sfumato technique involving the soft stubbled transitions between colors. The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, another one by da Vinci, a mural your mural painting of Jesus announcing to his disciples will betray him. One of them will betray him. The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, an expressive swirling depiction of night sky painted in 1889 during Van Gogh's time in the asylum. I just found a centipede in the basement, and comedy helps when you're in turmoil, so that's why I brought it up. Oh, okay. Yes. And I've been in an asylum before 45 days. Oh, Bob, I'm sure that was an interesting experience. I'm sure that certainly is a lot of stories to tell with that. And yeah, that centipede of yours that you speak of must be from Timu. I've had a lot of Timu centipedes that come up around the spaceship, and they always come from Timu. That's what I've noticed. Now, I wonder, like, there's a lot of centipedes that they'll just stay rent free because they will sometimes be in houses, it'll be inside places, and they will pay rent. It's like, do they pay rent? That's something that they need to do sometimes. Because sometimes they like to just crash for free. Ab says psych ward or old fashioned high max asylum, like where my brother is at. Bob says drug rehab, high dollar place. Yeah, I mean, oh, understood, understood. I went to an AA meeting my first years last week. Oh, interesting, interesting. All right. All right, the Great Emu War. The Australian military was dispatched to Western Australia to handle the population of emus that were damaging crops. The emus proved to be surprisingly difficult to deal with, and a highly publicized campaign failed spectacularly, with emus effectively winning the war. So this is a situation that happened where the emus won the war against Australia. Isn't that hilarious? Wow. And Ab says, I've been hospitalized 10 times for attempts and normal psych wards and short term unless you're probated. I gotcha, Bob. I'm sure you met a lot of interesting people, good and bad. Yeah. And there was Napoleon's rabbit attack. After signing a peace treaty, Napoleon Bonaparte arranged a celebrity rabbit hunt. His staff gathered tame nested rabbits rather than wild ones. When released, the hungry rabbits charged Napoleon and his men in a massive horde seeking food, and the emperor was forced to retreat in embarrassment. So, instead of them becoming the prey, Napoleon became the prey. Heh. Napoleon had a habit of messing up stuff like that. Right? Ab says, a lot of men, a lot of I've met a lot of people from those places, amazing people, just struggling a lot. Battle of Karan, no, yeah, Karan Cespis, 1788. In the Austro-Turkish War, the Austrian army was positioned near the town of Karan. A group of Haryusars crossed the river, found some Roma selling alcohol, and brought a battle of schnapps. When the infantry arrived and demanded some, brought the barrel of schnapps. When infantry arrived and demanded some of the drunken brawl broke out. Shots were fired, which escalated into a full-scale battle where the soldiers began fighting each other. Believing the Turks had attacked, the Austrian army ended up retreating from its own men, and the Ottoman army found a field of deleted dead, wounded Austrians. Later. I had one AA sponsor. He was great. Not a drinking. He had committed 40 armed robberies, liquor stores. Yeah, scared. Andrew Jackson's potty mouth parrot. A President Andrew Jackson funeral, his pet parrot, Pole, had to be removed from the premises. The bird reportedly began swearing loudly in the presence of the mourners and had to be taken out. So that bird, that parrot was the first troll. And I never knew that Andrew Jackson had a parrot. So at his funeral, his parrot was roasting everybody and your discretion, shit posting. And then they had to take the parrot out of his funeral. Scared. The exploding whale. Yeah, we talked about this with Lori the other day, a couple of nights ago. The exploding whale in 1970. In Florence, Oregon, a beached sperm whale carcass began decomposing and was deemed a public nuisance. The state's highway division decided to dispose of it using half a ton of dynamite. The results blast did not vaporize the whale, but instead it rained down chunks of decaying blubber on spectators and cars a quarter-mile away. So yeah, this is what we were talking about yesterday, Lord, where there's this whale washed up on a beach, and they decided that they had to get rid of the whale, and it wasn't feasible to put it back in the ocean, and it and it wasn't feasible to bury it either. So they were like, you know what? Let's blow this thing up. And everybody in the Navy and everyone said it's a good idea. And it went boom, and then all of its guts went over the that area. It was raining down guts and all kinds of things. Scared. Yeah, shout out ARG. Yeah, shout out to the pirates. Yeah. Lori said, I trained that bird. Hilarious. All right. The London Beer Flood, 1814. A massive vat of beer at the Moe and Company Brewery in London burst, triggering a chain reaction that caused other vats to spill. A wave of beer up to 15 feet high flooded and surrounding streets, destroying 2 homes and killing 8 people. Yeah, 1/4 a mile away. Yeah. All right. So, a great molasses flood, 1919. A massive storage tank containing 2.3 million gallons of molasses burst in Boston North End, resulting in 25-foot tall wave of molasses traveled an estimated 35 miles per hour, killing 21 people and injuring 150. The area reportedly smelled like molasses for decades afterwards. Scared? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, this is inventions gone wrong. Scared. Accidental inventions. Many popular products were invented by mistake. For instance, post it notes were created by an engineer who failed to create a super strong adhesive. Meanwhile, Play Doh was originally a wallpaper cleaner. I did never knew that it was a wallpaper cleaner. And I was like a little kid, I'd be playing with Play Doh, so I didn't know that. Failed flying machine. Oh, good grief. Okay, back in the 1800s and the 1912 and stuff like that, they had these crazy flying contraptions in the sky. And some early UFO sightings, like around the 1800s, could have been, some of them could have been people that created flying contraptions, like giant Airbuses and giant, like things you make out of your garage, or so, they made these giant Zeppelins and stuff, and people didn't know what they were exactly. But yeah, they were all kinds of flying machines back in the 1800s and 1900s. Yeah. Failed flying machine, 1912. French tailor Franz Reichelt became obsessed with inventing a parachute suit. Despite testing it repeatedly with dummies, he decided to test it himself by jumping off the Eiffel Tower. His attempt was a failure, and he fell to his deletion death. Scared. Oh no, scared. Rest in peace. Well, now they have a parachute suit. They have them now. People jump off cliffs and stuff, but yeah, that's harsh. Strangest events. The War of the Buckets. 1325. The Italian city states of Bologna and Modena had a long-standing rival, rivalry when some Modonese soldiers stole a bucket from a well in Bologna. It was humiliating that the act became flashpoint for a conflict that was technically won by Modone. The bucket remains Modene today. The Straw Hat Riots of 1922. In early 20th century, American men wore straw hats between Memorial Day and September 15. Wearing one after that was considered a major social faux pas. In 1922, a riot broke out in New York City after youths began snatching hats from men wearing them past the date. Unrest lasted over a week. So people were doing rioting and looting over straw hats. Scared. All right, this is something that another interesting story that Ab said thought I heard Straw Hat Pirates and thought of One Piece. Okay, and this is one of my friends from Germany. She was we came up with a character called the Hero Bee, and she was because the way we came up with it was just some of the story about this bee incident in Germany with this bee cake that was inspired by something else that occurred. I'll tell you what that's about. The origins. The most popular version of the story is set in the 15th century and involves a feud between two German towns, Linz, and Adranach, located in the Rhine River. The attack. The citizens of Linz planned a surprise attack in Andernach, which had been granted a toll collecting rights previously held by Linz. They hoped to catch the town while it was sleeping. The defense. The two baker boys in Andernach were on their way home and spotted the invading forces. To repel them, They reportedly threw beehives down from the city walls. The victory, the bees swarmed and stung the attackers, forcing them to flee. In celebration, the Baker boys, quick thinking, a cake was created in the name of Bienenstich, meaning bee sting. Bienensnitch, meaning bee sting. And while the story is widely associated with the cake, it considered a folklore rather than a true historical event. The creamy custard fillings of traditional Benin stitch requires refrigeration, a technology that did not exist in the 15th century. The earliest known recipes for Benin stitch within a filling only date back to early 20th century, making the older war-related legend unlikely. So that that's something pretty cool right there. Now let's see why pirates have parrots. Let's see where that came from. So here, why pirates have parrots. The association between pirates and parrots is primarily a fictional one popular by the 1883 novel Treasure Island, though stereotype has some roots in reality. Exotic birds were popular and lucrative commodity for sailors and pirates. Vibrant colors and ability to mimic human speech made them both valuable and entertaining. I used to sleep six high on the USS Orion, top bunk. Oh, that's very cool. Uh, they say at sea there's like seasickness and stuff, so it's that's pretty cool. But I understand it was probably maybe you got used to because allegedly people get seasickness. Well, interesting points. All right. Fictional Treasure Island. Most of the famous examples of pirates with a parrot is the character Long John Silver from Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. His pet parrot, Captain Flint, is a key part of his iconic image, and the book's popularity cemented the parrot as a standard pirate accessory in the public imagination. Other pirate characteristics, like famous pirates are, were also popularized by a later film adaptation of the novel. The facts why real pirates and sailors had pirates. Oh, okay, you're tied to the pier mostly, never got sick. Oh, okay, understood. Although not every pirate had a parrot, presence of exotic birds on sailing ships was not uncommon. Here's some of the historical relations between the practice. Viable commodity. The exotic and colorful birds of the Caribbean and Mexico were highly sought after by wealthy Europeans. Some pirates and sailors captured parrots to sell in Europe, bird markets for substantial profit. Entertainment. During the long voyages. Oh, hello, Liberty. Great to see you. Welcome to the stream. Although not every pirate had a parrot, the presence of the exotic birds and sailing ships was not uncommon. Here are some of the historical reasons behind the practice. Viable commodity. The exotic and colorful birds of the Caribbean and Mexico were highly sought after by the wealthy Europeans. Some pirates and sailors captured parrots to sell in European bird markets for substantial profit. Entertainment. During the long voyages, life at sea was often boring and monotonous. The intelligence of colorful plumage and mimicry of parrots could provide some welcome entertainment for the crew. Proof that they travel, I get that. Right. Easy to care for. Parrots are relatively small and don't require much food compared to other animals like monkeys or dogs. Their diet of seeds, nuts, and fruits was also easy to store on board. A status symbol. A pirate was proof that a pirate or sailor had traveled to exotic far off lands. A captain or high ranking pirate could keep a parrot as a status symbol or flaunt their success. Source of food. In some accounts, such as William Damper's 1697 book, A Voyage Around the World, sailors occasionally ate parrots, although this was likely a rarity. Scared. Now, besides parrots, the pirate ships often carried a variety of other animals, both as pets and for practical purposes like pest control and fresh food. The types of animals range from common domesticated pets to exotic creatures acquired during their travels. Companion and working animals. Cats. Felines were highly valued on ships for their role as rat catchers, protecting both the ship structures and the crew provisions from vermin. Sailors began, and a superstitious bunch also believing cats brought good luck. Dogs. Like cats, dogs could be kept to control vermin and provide companionship. They were also sometimes used for hunting when the ship was on land. Monkeys. Popular in Europe as exotic pets, monkeys were sometimes acquired during the voyages in the Caribbean, or other regions. In addition to their entertainment value, they were also sometimes used as a rat catchers. Interesting. Livestock for food. Goats, chickens, and pigs to combat the lack of fresh food and nutrition. Long voyages, many ships carried live animals such as source of fresh meat, eggs, and milk. Goats and chickens. Pigs were a common choice for this purpose. Okay, Liberty, understood. Cattle. Larger vessels could transport cattle for their crews' substance. These animals required significant space on deck and presented a challenge in rough seas. Unwanted stowaways, rats and mice. These pests were an unavoidable part of life on any long distance sailing ship. They contaminated food stores and caused extensive damage to ropes, wood, and other vital equipment. Exotic creatures, other birds and mammals. Given their lucrative nature of exotic animal trade, it was not unusual for a ship to carry a variety of unique creatures as cargo. Some crew members may have taken a liking to these animals and kept them as personal pets. In the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, they talk about the pets, the like the ghost monkey, the zombie monkey that's on their ship. Yeah, so they have, they have that. Let's see. Okay. Sometimes we talk about abandoned places. We had rodents aboard. No rodents aboard either the Orion or the Holland, which totals of 4 years. 2 years aboard each ship. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we talk about abandoned places also, and we're going to see what happened at Chernobyl. Oh, this microphone is going to fall off the table. Scared. Okay, let's go here. The Chernobyl disaster was catastrophic nuclear accident. A flunky, the welder of nothing in reality, says yesterday's animal is today's stowaway. Interesting. Thank you. All right. Oh, you're from Germany. Well, welcome to the chat. Right, and the was a Chernobyl disaster was a catastrophic nuclear accident that occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. It resulted from the combination of dangerously flawed reactor design and serious human errors during a safety test. The subsequent explosion and fire released massive amounts of radiation with far reaching consequences. How the accident happened. The disaster unfolded during the secluded test at reactor Unit 4. A series of events and factors set the stage for the explosion. A flawed reactor design, the Soviet designed RBMK reactor, had dangerous positive void coefficient. This meant that when cooling water boiled the steam and nuclear chain reaction would accelerate rather than slow down, creating a positive feedback loop and potential for a power surge. Human error. The error and procedure violations. Plant operators lacking awareness. Human error. The procedure violations. Plant operators lack awareness of the reactor's design flaw. Disabled multiple safety emergency cooling systems to prevent them from interrupting the test. They also attempted to run the reactor at a dangerously low power level. The power surge. The reactor became unstable and sudden expected power surge occurred. In a panic, an operator pressed the emergency shutdown button, but this triggered a major design flaw. The design of the control rods created an initial power to increase when inserted, causing an unstoppable power surge. Explosions from fire. At 1:23 a.m., the chain reaction went out of control. Two massive explosions blew the 1,000-ton reactor lid off and destroyed the reactor building. exposing the core atmosphere. A subsequent graphite fire burned for 10 days. Stewing radioactive particles in the environment. Yeah, Flunky says that must have had been a shock. All is well, quiet, then boom. Yes, yeah, it's like you hear birds and everything chirping, and then they have an explosion occur, and it all heck breaks loose. That would describe the fire in the sky I saw. Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, because some people were talking about that with the UFOs, where you have this pattern of these type of fireballs in the sky, but this is a different type of fire, but it would be similar. Yeah. The international detection of the disaster only became internally known after the radiation alarms were triggered at a nuclear plant in Sweden, which detected the fallout carried by wind. Containment efforts. Thousands of workers, dubbed the liquidators, risked their lives to contain the disaster. They dropped the sand barren from the helicopters to extinguish the fire, and later built a temporary concrete sarcophagus to cover the destroyed reactor. Now, the fire was just your house burning down because some smuck put a match under your wooden door. Oops. Scared. And maybe that's how the fire happened. It was just someone lit a match and then it exploded. And they're trying to blame something else, but somebody must have been in the plant and they lit a match and it just went boom. Yeah. The effects of Chernobyl disaster have presented for decades. The exclusion town, a permanent exclusion zone was established around the plant, forcing the evacuation and relocation of hundreds of thousands of people. The city of Perite is now a modern-day ghost town. Radiation release. The disaster released large quantities of radioactive substances, primarily cesium-137 and strontium-90, which sped across the vast area of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia and Europe. Flunky says, sticks and stones can't break my bones, but particles, oh, yuppie. We call them Timo particles over here. Right, Bomb says, 28 is surprising, low deaths. Russians said it was no big deal. We do that too. Yeah, perhaps trying to downplay it. And when you have the type of, you never really always know what the truth you're getting is. They might be, when they're controlling the narrative. Probably the gamma made them puke like in a wave. Yeah. Yeah. A bomb of gamma. Yeah. The disaster released a large quantities of radioactive substances, primarily cesium 137 and strontium 90, which spread across vast areas of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia and Europe. Health effects. There was a significant increase in thyroid cancer, particularly among children who were exposed to radioactive iodine 131, while some highly exposed individuals are at higher risk. Long-term studies have not been established. Major increase in cancers, non-malignant disorders, and a wider affected population. However, the psychological trauma and fear have been made major public health consequences. Puke wave makes me puke. Yeah. The puke pukes even. Scared. Environmental impact. The large tract of land, particularly forest and wetlands, were contaminated. However, wildlife has since returned to the exclusion zone in the large numbers with animal populations thriving in absence of humans. Safety improvements. The disaster led to major changes in the reactor safety regulations and enhanced global nuclear safety regime. A massive arc-shaped steel structure called the New Safe Confinement was built on the old sarcophagus of in 2016 contain the radioactive remnants are at least 100 years. Yeah, there was the let's see the animal mutants. Let's talk about the animal mutants because there was a lot of those over there. All right, Flunk says, "Well, guess their bodies can't handle the shock and shake. Well, I guess wet and windy always work." Yeah, there you go. Iodine is the tap I got in case of nukes. Oh, okay. Thank you, Bob, for the information. All right. Immediately following the Chernobyl disaster, a spike of mutations and deformities was observed in animals in the surrounding areas. The vast years that followed, many of the severely mutated animals did not survive or reproduce. Today, most animals appear outward normal, but scientists continue to find genetic differences, heightened mutation rates, and some visible abnormalities, particularly among birds. Immediate aftermath. The months and years directly after the accident and high levels of radiation had immediately severe impact on animal populations. Also, so radioactive iodine is kind of bad. Yeah, yeah, it definitely sounds like very bad. Yeah. Flunky said, "Nah, the dogs turned into wolves and ran into Hollywood for some pooch." Scared. Farm animals. Ranchers observed hundreds of genetic abnormalities in farm animals, with many deformed calves and pigs born in years immediately after the 1986. Most of these animals had severe defects such as facial malformations or extra limbs and did not survive long. Yeah, as they all call it, Hollywood, Hollyweird. Yeah, that's where the mutant wolves are. Yeah, they and then they probably have three eyes, kind of like a spider would look kind of spider eyes, and they're all over that place. Yeah, insects and invertebrates. The populations of many invertebrates include bees, butterflies, and spiders drop significantly. This was likely because they lay their eggs in topsoil contained extremely high levels of radioactivity. Aquatic life. And Flunky says, I watched much of 1930s and 40s Looney Tune Busters. That's my comedy. Oh, me too, Flunky. When I remember watching, growing up with the cassette tapes, they would. I don't think I said the cassette tapes. Or I don't really remember. They're VHS tapes, not cassette tapes. All right, VHS tapes. And I used to watch a replay of those. Those are very, very funny. Yeah, I love the artwork they had in those films, and I really thought the atmosphere was very nice too. Yeah, very funny indeed. Yes. After over 3 decades without human interference, the wildlife of Chernobyl exclusion zone is now thriving, but studies show the animals are still affected by the radiation. Yeah, it affects you on a genetic level later on. Adaptation in frogs. Eastern tree frogs in Chernobyl region are noticeably darker than those outside the exclusion zone. This is believed to be an adaptation as frogs with more melanin dark pigment are better protected from radiation. Frogs with this trait were more likely to survive and reproduce, leading a darker frog made more common. Guess them their dog's worst nightmare wasn't the fleas to urge to find a tree, yeah, and those piss radio waves. Yeah, 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 definitely. Lori says 1986, heck a year. We watched the space shuttle Challenger blow up on TV at our library. Oh yeah, with that incident that occurred, it I was not there, but I did see a rerun of it at school one time on the big TV, and that really had to be terrible to see live, definitely. And Bob says I was 1 hour north of it, Lori, the coast of Georgia. Ah, okay. Genetic changes in wolves. Ah, the wolves. The wolves. As Funky Flunky was saying, the wolves. Maybe the Chernobyl radio waves made the frogs not gay, but into a MAGA supporters. Yippee. Scared. All right. And Bob says a lot of moss survive Chernobyl. Let's see. I will look that up, Bob. We'll find that out next. Genetic changes in wolves. Researchers studying the gray wolves in the exclusion zone have found that their genetic makeup shows a heightened resilience to cancer by eating radioactive prey. The wolves have developed mutations that may give them an immunity to tumors, an evolutionary adaptation that is passed down through generations. All right, so that's interesting. It gave them some sort of resilience to cancer. It gave them a heightened resilience to cancer by eating radioactive prey. So these wolves from Chernobyl and Hollywood eat radioactive prey. All right. Ongoing issues. Birds, even decades later, birds like barn swallows continue to show higher rates of abnormalities than those in non-radiated areas. This includes tumors, smaller brains, deformed beaks and feathers, and malformed sperm. That is something interesting. Malformed sperm. I have not heard that expression before until now. Wow, very elegant of that to put it that way. Unique genetics in dogs. The stray dogs of Chernobyl, descendants of pets left behind during the evacuation, have distinct genetic differences from other dogs. Research into their DNA revealed that they have inherited pockets of radioactive isotopes from ancestors, including that radiation intertwined with their genetic makeup. Lori said, my mom was in the running by the teacher on the shuttle, so I'm grateful that she wasn't elected. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad that she wasn't on it. You thought the Chernobyl movie was pretty good. Ah, yes. I don't know inherit radiation. Right. Well, many studies have documented negative effects and mutations. There is ongoing specific scientific debates about the full impact of radiation. Some scientists argue that the absence of humans has allowed many animal populations like wolves and wild boar to thrive, potentially overshadowing the determinational effects of radiation. Other experts argue that observed differences in animals show how negative effects that the high concentration of wildlife due to immigration from the outside of the zone, not necessarily a healthy, sustained population. That is very so close to home indeed. In my opine, I think that this is a radioactive situation where they did not secure. They did human error definitely caused this. They were not handling the radioactive area they had correctly, and it's interesting to see the scientific ways these animals adapted to their environment and how they became mutated. Lori said, "Sperm with three tails, we get nowhere." Scared. So they don't know yet if Chernobyl was a disaster. Exactly. Selected. Truly, I cannot type on my phone. All right. Yes, all a lot of moss survived the and thrived in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, but with a major caveat. It highly radioactive because moss's lack of protective cuticule and absorb nutrients directly from the air and surface layer of the soil are unexpectedly effective at accumulating radioactive particles. All right. Let's go this way. Ah, so moss is a sink. Yeah, exactly. All right. Why mosses became highly radioactive? Direct absorption. After the 86 disaster, a vast amount. Oh, good evening, Doe. Welcome to the chat. Direct absorption. After 1986 disaster, the vast amounts of radioactive particles, including cesium 137, fell and settled into the environment. Mosses, unlike vascular plants with roots and cuticules, absorbed these radionuclides directly through the entire surface area. Surface level contamination. The radioactive particles initially settled on top of the layer of the soil because the mosses also draw nutrients from the surface layer via small root like structures called rhizoids. They continue to absorb radionuclides that are still present in decades later. Yeah, moss is cleaning up. Yep. Bioaccumulation. Over time, mosses have become highly concentrated with radioactive elements. Some studies have found that mosses in the exclusion zone contain some of the highest levels of radioactivity compared to other plant life. Poor nutrients uptake. Since mosses are not very good at drawing nutrients from deeper soil layers, they have primarily collected radioactive material that remains on the surface. Been a Boris 20 years now. Moss intrigues me. Ah, been a Boris 12 years. Very interesting. Poor nutrient uptake. Since mosses are not very good at drawing nutrients from deeper soil layers, they have primarily collected radioactive materials that remain on the surface. After a nuke, add moss. Yeah, yeah. Remobilization. The Contained moss possesses a risk of the ecosystem. When animals like deer, elk, or boars graze on the moss, the radioactive particles can enter the food chain. Wildfires. During the wildfires, a documented occurrence in the exclusion zone, radioactive mosses can burn and release radioactive dust back into the air. Warnings from guides. As some journalists have reported, tour guides in exclusion zones often warn visitors to avoid stepping on or disturbing the moss because of the concentrated radioactivity in harbors. Do you burn it and nuke the air again? Right, right. It's like, what do you do with it? It's a good question. Like, it has to contain it and go down with the ship, so to speak. Right. While the moss is highly contaminated, it is very resilient. Moss spores can survive extreme conditions, and the species present in Chernobyl have played a role in the re-emergence of life in the area after devastation, despite the intense radiation of the overall diversity of mosses. In the exclusion zone does not appear to be significantly impoverished. Ah, yes. Yeah, that's true, Bob. Radioactive mosses could not be used directly for cleanup in a simple, straightforward way. While mosses are very good at accumulating contamination, the process of using plants to remove pollutions carry is much complex. So mosses themselves are highly radioactive, and harvesting them require extreme caution. Waste disposal. Even if the contaminated moss were successfully harvested, it would become radioactive waste. Safely and permanently disposing of such waste is a major challenge and primarily goal of Chernobyl cleanup effort. Using contaminated moss would simply create more radioactive waste need to be disposed of. Oh, one juror matters, my bro. Thank you for coming and hitting the like button. I appreciate you, man. I hope you're doing well. Certain moss species are excellent at bioaccumulators of heavy metals such as lead, copper, and zinc from water sources. Researchers in Japan, for example, have successfully used the moss in funerari to absorb lead from the contaminated water. Containment. The dense growth of moss can also help stabilize contaminated soil and prevent spread of surface pollutions through erosion. Controlled cultivation. The key difference Chernobyl situation is for the cleanup process, mosses are typically grown to control the environment, and harvesting the disposal of contaminated biomass and parts of a managed process. This is contrast to the wild, highly toxic mosses that already exist in Chernobyl. The radioactive fungi found there represent a major scientific discovery with significant potential applications. These unique organisms use melanin to convert harmful radiation into chemical energy, much like plants use Chernobyl to convey sunlight during photosynthesis. How Chernobyl fungi works. Radiosynthesis. In 90s, scientists discovered a certain black fungi, including species like Cladosporium, were not only surviving but thriving on the walls of the damaged Chernobyl reactor. This led to the discovery of process dubbed in radiosynthesis. Hilarious chat. Melanin's role. The key to this ability lies in melanin, the same pigment from in the human skin. These fungi, melanin acts as a biological shield, but also harnesses ionizing gamma radiation and converts it into energy for growth. Studies have shown these fungi grow faster in radioactive environments, suggesting they actively use radiation to fuel beta metabolism. NASA and SpaceX have conducted experiments at the International Space Station with Chernobyl fungi. The fungal radiation shields a found 1.7 millimeters thick layer of Candosophoreum could reduce radiation levels by about 2%. Researchers estimated that a 21 centimeter thick layer could significantly protect astronauts on long term Mars missions. This would be self replicating and self healing shield, making it a sustainable solution. All right. Yeah, fungi rock. Yeah. Oh, right, right, Bob, absolutely. All right, so what I'm going to do at the moment is we talk about pirates here a lot, and I'm going to do give some information about the golden age of piracy and how it all became a thing. All right. So going here. What's this? Switch my picture over here. Yeah, facts. Yeah. The golden age of piracy was the period between the 1650s and the 1730s when maritime piracy was a significant factor in the histories of North Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Histories of piracy often subdivided the golden age of piracy into three periods. The buccaneering period, approximately 1650 to 1680, characterized by Anglo-French seamen scared based in Jamaica, Martinica, and Tortuga, attacking Spanish colonies and shipping. The Caribbean, Eastern Pacific to Western Pacific. The pirate round 1690s associated with the long distance voyages from the Americas to rob East India Company targets in the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea. The post Spanish succession period. I curse like a sailor. Facts. Facts. 1715 to 1726. When English sailors and privateers left unemployed By the end of the war, the Spanish succession turned to emasse to piracy in the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, North America, and eastern seaboard and West African coast. Narrower definitions. The Golden Age sometimes excluded the first and second periods. Most include at least some portion of the third. The modern conception of pirates, as depicted in popular culture, is derived largely, although not always accurately, from Golden Age of piracy. Factors contributing. The piracy during the Golden Age include the rise in quantities of valuable cargoes being shipped to Europe over vast ocean areas, reducing European navies in certain regions, and the training and experience that many sailors had gained in European navies, Royal Navy, and corruption and ineffective government in European overseas colonies and global powers. And Lori also curses like a pirate. Arg. Origins. The oldest known literary mention of the Golden Age of piracy was from 1894, when English journalist George Powell wrote, what appears to have been in the Golden Age of piracy up to the last decades of the 17th century. Powell used the phrase while reviewing Charles Liesl's A New Exact History of Jamaica. Then over 150-year-old Powell uses the phrase only once. How many have to die in a notable battle? It could just be one person that was very important, or 1,000 men. Something has to just reign significant about the occurrence for it to be a notable battle. My opinion. In 1897, more semantic phrase of Golden Age of piracy was introduced by historian John Frisk, who wrote, "At no other time in the world's history has the business of piracy thriven so greatly as the 7th century and the first part of the 18th. Its golden age may be said to have extended from about 1650 to about 1720. Frisk included the activities of the Barbary corsairs and East Asian pirates in the Golden Age, noting that all these Muslim men pirates in those Eastern Asia were boostly at work 17th century at other times, not improper, may in the statement age buccaneers as Golden Age of piracy." All right, so piracy in the Caribbean. Piracy arose out of the mirrored or smaller scale conflicts over trade and colonization among the rival European powers of the time, including the empires of Britain, Spain, and Netherlands, Portugal, and France. This chat makes me almost cry. Scared. Most pirates in this era were English, Welsh, Dutch, Irish, and French origin. Many pirates came from the poorer urban areas in the search of a way to make money and reprieve in London. Particular was also known for high unemployment, crowding, and poverty, which drove people to piracy. Piracy also offered power and quick riches. You thought of moving to the Mediterranean? Is that what you said? Buccaneering period, 1650 to 1680. Carol said, "Good evening, alien in chat. Sorry about last night. Much love." Oh, it's okay, Caraville. It's all good. Thank you for being here, my friend. I'm glad to have you on board. Shout out to you, buddy. All right. Buccaneering period, 1650s, 1680. Oh, he says pirates come from the poor. Yeah, yeah, that's true. And because it basically says the reprieve of London in particular was known for the high unemployment, crowding, and poverty which drove people to piracy. Piracy also offered power and quick riches. Buccaneering period 1650 to 1680. Historians such as John Fiske mark the beginning of the golden age of piracy at around 1650, when at the end of the wars of the religions allowed European countries to resume the development of their colonial empires. This involved considerable seaborne trade and general economic improvement. There was money to be made or stolen, and much of it traveled by ship. That is true, Bob. They send the poor to war even in the draft. Yeah. There's a song called from System of a Down is Why Do They Always Send the Poor? Yeah. French buccaneers had established themselves on the northern Hispaniola as early as 1625, but lived at the first mostly as hunters of pigs and cattle rather than robbers. Their transition to a full-time piracy. Let's see this. All right, Abby. Good night to you. Take care, hun, and thank you coming to the stream, dear. And have a good night. So full-time piracy was gradual and motivated by Spanish efforts to wipe out both buccaneers and prey animals on which they depend. The buccaneers' migration from Hispaniola mainland to the defensible offshore of Tortuga limited their resources and accelerated their particle raids, according to Alexandria Exquemelin, buccaneer and historian from the period at Tortuga. Buccaneer Pierre Le Grand pioneered the settlers' attack on the Galileans, making the return voyage to Spain. Yes, thank you, Bob. Thank you. A buccaneer historian from this period, Tortuga buccaneer Pare Le Grand pioneered the and settlers attacked on Galileans, making the return voyage to Spain. The French buccaneer Francisco Jean David Nayu was known for his extreme and famous cruelty toward Spanish prisoners on the island of Martinica. Served his home port of the French buccaneers like him, allowing the French to operate in the Caribbean against the Spanish ships. The growth buccaneering on Tortuga was augmented by English capture of Jamaica from Spain in 1655. The earlier English government of Jamaica freely granted letters of marque. Yeah, definitely. To Tortuga, buccaneers and their own countrymen, while the growth of Port Royal provided these raiders with a far more profitable and enjoyable place to sell their booty. In the 1600s, the new French governor of Tortuga, Bertrand de Organ, similarly provided privateering commissions both to his colonists and English cutthroats from Port Royal. These conditions brought Caribbean buccaneers to zenith, accumulating in the Henry Morgan's Panama expedition in 1670, which saw Panama City plundered, sacked, and burned the following year. Sailor before me got flogged. Oh, wow. Wow. And I didn't know they still did that in the Navy. Pirate Round, 1693, 1700. Plundered, sacked, and burned kind of bad. Ouch. Yeah. A number of factors caused the English pirates, some of whom been introduced to piracy during the buccaneering period, to look beyond the Caribbean for treasures. As 1690s began, Glorious Revolution had restored the traditional enmity between Britain and France, thus ending profitable collaboration between English Jamaica and French Tortuga. The devastation of Port Royal by an earthquake in 1692 further reduced the Caribbean's attractions by destroying the pirates' chief mark for fencing plunder. Caribbean colonial governments began to discard our traditional policy of no peace beyond the line, under which was understood that the war would continue in the Caribbean, regardless of the peace treaties signed in Europe. Henceforth, the commissions would be granted only in wartime. Thrice between 1667 and 1678, while Rio de Hacha had been raided 5 times in Toliu 8. The side picture is Henry is showing us selling his loot. Is engraved how pile right there. Alright. Reminds you of Masters and Commanders right there. At the same time, and Bob said the man had simply been exhausted. That's Navy life. Right. At the same time, England's less favored colonies include Bermuda, New York, Rhode Island, had become cash starved by navigation acts. Merchants and governors eager for coin were willing to overlook, even underwrite, pirate voyages. One colonial official defended a pirate because he thought it was very harsh to hang people that brings in gold these provinces, although some of these pirates operated out of New England and the middle colonies, targeted Spain's more remote Pacific coast colonies. Well into the 1690s and beyond, Indian Ocean was richer and more tempting targets. India's economic output dwarfed Europe's during the time, especially in high-value luxury goods such as silk, calico, which made ideal pirate booty. At the same time, no powerful navies piled the Indian Ocean, leaving both local shipping, other various East India Company's vessels vulnerable to attack. This set the stage for famous piracies of Thomas Tew, Henry Every, and Robert Culford. Bread and water as punishment. Exit today. How to bring gold not to get hanged for stealing or pirating. Exactly, facts. Yeah. The ocean is the most horrific, terrifying thing I know. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. At the same time, England's less favored colonies in Bermuda. Oh, wait, I read that right. Okay. So post Spanish, there's William Kidd. Who's this? Post Spanish succession period 1715 to 1726. In 1713 to 1714, a series of peace treaties ended the War of Spanish Succession. As a result, thousands of seamen, including European privateers who had operated the West Indies, were relieved of military duty at the time when cross-Atlantic colonial shipping trade was beginning to boom. In addition, European sailors who had been pushed by unemployment to work on board merchant men, including slave ships, were often enthusiastic to abandon that profession, turned to pirating. Pirate captains are a steady pool of recruits on various coasts across the Atlantic. In 1715, pirates launched a major raid on Spanish drivers trying to recover gold from the sunken treasure galleon Eurica de Lima near Florida. The nucleus of pirating forces was a grouping of English ex-privateers, all of whom were soon to be enshrined in infamy. Henry Jennings, Charles Vane, and Samuel Bellamy of the Whitehall galley fame, Benjamin Hornigold, that's his name, it's Hornigold, and Edward England. The attack was successful, but contrary to their expectations, the governor of Jamaica refused to allow Jennings and his cohorts to spend their loot on his island, with Kingston and declining Port Royal closed them. Hornigold, Jennings, and commanders based themselves at Nassau, issued the new province of Bahamas. Nassau was home to these pirates and their many recruits until the arrival of Governor Woodes Rogers, 1718, when signaled end of the Republic of Pirates. Rogers and other British governors had the authority to pardon pirates under the King's Act of Grace, while Hornigold accepted his pardon to become a privateer. Others suggest Blackbeard returned to the piracy following their pardons. It's near Florida. Pierce. Oh, it's near Fort Pierce. Ben was the man. Oh, okay. Yeah. So they had a republic of pirates. Nassau. Thank you, Lori. I got it backwards. Thank you. The Flying Gang was an 18th century group of pirates established themselves in Nassau, New Providence of Bahamas, after the destruction of Port Royal in Jamaica. The gang consisted of many famous pirates at the time and terrorized, pillaged the Caribbean until the Royal Navy came through. I do too, Bob. Hello, Todd. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening. Transatlantic shipping traffic between Africa, Caribbean, and Europe began to soar in the 18th century, a model known as the triangular trade, and became a target of piracy. Trade ships sailed from Europe to African coast, trading manufactured goods and weapons for slaves. The traders then sailed to the Caribbean to sell slaves, returned to Europe with goods such as sugar, tobacco, coca. Another triangular trade route, the ships carried raw materials and preserved cod, rum to Europe, where the portion of the cargo was sold manufacturing goods, which, along with the remainder of the original load, were then transported to the Caribbean, where they were exchanged for sugar, molasses, which some manufacture articles were then born in New England. Ships then triangular trade often made money at each stop. Yeah, the Jolly Rogers. Yes. As part of the settlement, the war with the Spanish succession, the British South Sea Company obtained the assertion of Spanish government contract to supply slaves to Spain's New World colonies, which provides the British trades smugglers more access to formerly closed Spanish markets in America. This arrangement also contributed heavily to the spread of piracy across the western Atlantic. Shipping to the colonies boomed along with flood of skilled mariners after the war. Merchant shippers used the surplus labor to drive wages down, cut corners to maximize profits, and create unsavory conditions aboard their vessels. Merchant sailors suffered from mortality rates as high or higher, and slaves began transported. Living conditions were so poor, many sailors began to prefer freer existence as pirates. The increased volume of the shipping traffic also could sustain a large body of brigands preying upon it. Yeah, that's true. They had to be voted. They voted upon different pirates. Right. Different pirate captains had to be voted on. Right. During this time, many of the pirates had originally been either sailors for Royal Navy, privateersmen, or merchants. Seamen, most pirates had experience living on the sea and knew how harsh the conditions could be. Sailors for the king often had very little to eat, while out on the sea ended up sick, starving, and dying. That resulted in some sailors deserting the king and becoming pirates instead. This also allowed for pirates to better fight in the navy. Unlike the seafarers, pirates had strict rules how they were to be treated on the ships. Contrary to popular belief, the pirate captains did not have a dictatorship or the rest of the pirates of the ship. Captains had voted in and were strict rules for him to follow as well. The captain was not treated better with more food, better living conditions, and other members of the crew. It was expected to treat the crew with respect. This was deliberate contrast to the merchant captains who often treated their crews terribly. Many pirates had formerly served on these merchant ships and knew how horrid some captains could be, because this ships often implemented councils composed of all the crew members of the ships. Some councils were used daily to make ordinary decisions, while others were used as a court system. Only when criminal incidents, legal matters necessitated it, whatever the case, crewmen on the pirate vessels often had much power as the captain outside of the battle. I lived with Captain Morgan and only saw him once. Oh, interesting. Interesting. On the USS Orion, he was our captain. Oh, okay. Thank you. It's a cool ship. All right. Return to the pirate round. Between the years 1719 and 1721, Edward England, John Taylor, and Oliver Levasseur and Christopher Condon operated from Madagascar. Taylor Levasseur reaped the greatest prizes in history of the golden age of piracy and plundered the Portuguese East Indian Nossa Senhora do Cabo Reunion in 1721, stealing diamonds and other treasures worth a total of 800,000 pounds, which is even more in our currency. Condent was also a successful pirate, but England was not. He was marooned by, thank you, Bob, Comores, Taylor, and Levasseur of 1721, and was died not long despite success. Taylor Levasseur, the pirate round quickly declined. Edward Tech, the notorious Blackbeard, was died in the fight with Lieutenant Robert Maynard's Navy ship. He was allegedly stabbed 20 times and shot 5 times before his deletion death. Okay. Let's go here. That is very cool, Bob. Awesome. That sub is really cool. I like it. It looks like a Black Panther in the water. It looks like a whale. It looks very cool. Reminds you of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Pirates of the era. Many best-known pirates in historical lore originates from Golden Age of piracy. And then you have Blackbeard's severed head hanging from the Madrid's bow right there. Samuel Bellamy, captain of the Whydah galley, was lost in a storm of Cape Cod in 1717. Bellamy was popular, known for Robin Hood of pirates, and prided himself on his ideological justification of piracy. Stede Bonnet, a rich Barbadian landowner turned pirate solely in search of adventure. Bonnet captained a 10-gun sloop named the Revenge and raided the ships of the Virginia coast. In 1717, he was caught and hanged in 1718. Henry Every, one of the few major pirate captains to retire with his loot without being arrested, nor deleted killed in battle. He is famous for capturing the fabulously wealthy Mogul ship Ganj I Swalai in 1695. Oliver Levasseur, a.k.a. La Buse, the only major French pirate in Nassau, who was often associated with the Hornigold Bellamy Kennedy Taylor. William Fly, whose execution in 1726 is used by historian Marcus Rediker to mark the end of the golden age of pirates. William Captain Cod, executed for piracy at Execution Dock, London. 1701, is famous for the buried treasure he supposedly left behind. Edward Lowe, born Westminster, was an active 1721 to 1724, was never captured and was notorious for torturing his victims before leading killing them, and he cut off ears and lips and noses. Henry Morgan, a buccaneer who raided a Spaniard and took Panama City before burning to the ground. He was to be executed in England, but was instead knighted and made governor of Jamaica. He was Leah died in natural deaths in 1688, and John Rackham, famous for his partnership with female pirates Anne Boney and Mary Read, was captured, then hanged, and gibbeted outside Port Royal, Jamaica, 1720. Yup, that's true, Bob. Yeah. Bartholomew Roberts is considered by many as the most successful Western pirate of all time, with over 400 ships captured. Edward Blackbeard Tech. Active from 1716 to 1718, perhaps the most notorious pirate among English-speaking nations. Blackbeard's most famous ship was the Queen Anne's Revenge, named in response to the end of the Queen Anne's War. He was deleted killed by one of Lieutenant Robert Menard's crewmen in 1718. Charles Vane, particularly violent and repentant pirate who served under Henry Jennings before striking out his own harsh and unpopular with his crew. Vane was marooned before being captured and hanged in 1721. Benjamin Hornigold, an English pirate who helped found the Republic of Pirates before taking royal pardon and becoming a pirate hunter. Becoming a pirate hunter. Amerigo Perigo, a prominent Spanish consigliere who dominated the route between Cadiz and the Caribbean. His figure had been wrapped in a hollow romanticism legend that have linked him to piracy, hidden treasures, and illicit romances in the marble headstone of the tomb in San Cristobal de Laguna, a skill which two crossbones is engraved that is winking its right eye. Yeah. Okay. Barbary pirates or privateers. Barbary pirates were pirates that operated from North Africa, Barbary coast, ports of Algiers, Morocco, and Tripoli. Tunis preying on the ships in the Western Mediterranean Sea from time the Crusades, as well as on ships on their way to Asia around Africa until the early 19th century. The coastal village and towns of Italy, Spain, and Mediterranean islands were frequently attacked by them, and long stretches of the Italian and Spanish coasts were almost completely abandoned by their inhabitants. Since the 17th century, Barbary pirates occasionally entered the Atlantic and struck as far north as Iceland, according to Robert Davis. Between 1 million and 1.25 million Europeans were captured the Barbary pirates enslaved in North Africa between 16th century and 19th centuries. Barbary pirates Barbary pirates flourished in the early 17th century. New sailing rigs Simon Densieur enabled North African raiders from the first time to brave Atlantic as well Mediterranean waters. More than 20,000 captives were said to be imprisoned in Algiers alone. The rich were allowed to redeem themselves, but the poor were condemned to slavery. Their masters, on the occasion, allowed them to secure freedom by many people in good social positions, and the Germans, Italians, and Spaniards. All right, and Iceland was subjected to the raids and said to have taken 400 prisoners. And now, while pirates are commonly depicted with eye patches, this is largely a myth originating in the 19th century's novels and tales of buccaneers that include payment for a lost eye. A few hundred pirates were patches over the eyes. Yeah, right on. Exactly, Bob. Along with some, like, an 18th century Arab pirate, Ramaha Ibn al-Jamaa did. Right? Was the golden age of European pirates is generally considered to have ended between 1710 and 1730. The prosperity of the Barbary pirates continued until the early 19th century. Unlike European powers, the young United States refused to pay tribute to Barbary state in response to the First Barbary War, Second Barbary War against North Africa, while Barbary pirates captured enslaved American sailors. All right, so that's from like Europe and North Africa. Buccaneers. Buccaneers operated mainly in the Caribbean. They originated in Tortuga. Shout out to Tortuga. Around the 17th century as hunters, but became pirates when government officials paid groups of men to attack and loot Spanish ships. These buccaneers later began attacking any ship of value, enemy or not. Privateers. The privateers were private persons who engaged in maritime warfare. Right under the Commission of War. Correct. Privateers were private persons who engaged in maritime warfare under the Commission of War. The Commission of War were known as letters of marque, which gave them the authority to raid enemy ships and exempt from piracy charges. Privateers have existed from far back as the Middle Ages, where letters of reprisal were used to ship owners who were wishing to seek revenge for the loss of their own ships. Alright, female pirates. Yay! Anne Bonny disappeared after 28 November 1720. Developed a notorious reputation in Nassau. When she was unable to leave an early marriage, she eloped with her lover, John Rackham. Mary Read had been dressed as a boy all her life by her mother and had spent time in the British military. She came to the West Indies, Caribbean, after leaving her husband and joined Rackman's crew. After he attacked the ship she had been aboard, she divulged her gender only to Bonny at first, but revealed herself openly when accused by Rackham of having an affair with Bonny. When their ship was attacked in 1720, Bonny Read Bonnie, Reed, and an unknown man were the only ones to defend it. The crew members were too drunk to fight. In the end, they were captured and arrested. After their capture, both women were convinced of piracy, sentenced to deletion death, but they stalled their executive executions by claiming to be pregnant. Reed was deleted, died in jail months later. Many believe a fever complications of childbirth. Bonnie disappeared from historical documents. No record of her execution or childbirth exists. All right. And decline. By the early 18th century, tolerance for privateers was wearing thin, and all nations after the Treaty of Utrecht was signed, and the excess of traded sailors without employment was both a blessing and a curse for all pirates. Initially, the surplus of men had caused the number of pirates to multiply significantly. This inevitable led the pillage of more ships, which put greater strain on trade for all European nations. In response, European nations bolstered their own navies to offer great protection for merchants and to hunt down pirates. The excess of skilled sailors meant there was a large pool that could be recruited into national navies as well. Piracy was clearly on a strong decline by 1720. Golden Age of piracy did not last decades. The events of the later half of 1718 included the arrival of Governor Woodes Rogers in Nassau, represent a turning point in the history of piracy in the Western Hemisphere. Without the safe base with growing pressure from naval forces, rovers lost their momentum. The lure of the Spanish treasures had faded, and the hunters gradually became hunted. Early 1719, remaining pirates were on the run. Most of them headed West Africa, seizing poorly defended slavers. Stories and histories of the Golden Age, from foundations of many modern depictions of pirates and piracy. A general history of the pirates in 1724 by Captain Charles Johnson is the source of many biographies of well-known pirates, providing an extensive account of the period. Johnson gives almost a mythical status to the more colorful characteristics, such as Blackbeard or John Rackham. In 2002, English naval historian David Cordigley wrote an introduction to Johnson's 1724 book, stating, Captain Johnson created the modern concept of pirates. Johnson's book influenced the pirate literature of Robert Louis Stevenson and J.M. Barrie. The mystique of pirates is popular related to attributes of real pirates. For example, they wore earrings and hoops, that the gold or silver would be used to play for decent burial when they were deleted, died. They also wore earrings for superstitious reasons, believing the previous metals had magical healing powers. Recently, we see less accurate depictions of historical era pirates, like Alright, Bob, see you later. Peace. All right, and more recently, we see even less accurate depictions of historical pirates. Talk Like a Pirate Day, continuing the romantic image of the pirate as a treasure burying swashbuckler popular culture. All right. All right, so that's a genuine assessment of the history of it. Now it says the captain was elected by all men in the crew and could be replaced by a majority vote at the same time by the same. Cowardly or brutal captains were quickly voted out of their positions. Captains were expected to be skilled and dependable seamen. They were also expected to be. Oh, thank you, Lori. Thank you. Bold and decisive leaders. Since they made most important decisions, including how to engage a target, how to pursue prey, and how to escape the authorities, and how to deal with attack in their later situation, there was no time for taking a vote, instilling conflict. This is kind of talking about what goes on the pirate ship according to historical narratives. All right. The quartermaster had the same authority as captain, except during battle, the crew elected him to represent their interests. He commanded the crew during the absence of the captain. His other jobs include keeping order, settling conflicts between crew members, and determining the amount of food and drinking distributed to each of the crew members. The sailing master oversaw navigation and sailing of the ship. Often because of their skills, they were forced into service for pirates. Boatswain took care of the boat by supervising supplies, inspecting the ship every morning, and reporting the condition of the ship to the captain. He also supervised the deck activities, including the handling of the sails, weighing, dropping anchor, and the carpenter under the boatswain. Quartermaster's directions repaired. Sometimes the carpenter would use the surgeon on the ship. Master gunner ensured that the cannons and weapons were in working order. The mate. Often there were first, second mates, usually worked under the ship's master, boatswain, gunner, or carpenter as apprentice. Mates also outfitted the ship with ropes, pulleys, sails, and other rigged as needed. Very interesting. All right. Other roles. The common sailor would be familiar with rigging, sails, and steering the ship. They kept watch on and handled cannons during battle. A rigger worked the running rigs and fullered and released the sails. Young boys or men on the pirate ships were often servants known as cabin boys. During battles, powder monkeys, never heard of that before, ran gunpowder from below deck to the cannon crews, also relayed messages. Well, isn't that something? The powder monkeys, they relayed messages between upper and lower decks, and they ran gunpowder around. Well, it looks like the monkeys are more reliable than some people. That is the, of course, that's a expression. The powder monkeys is an expression, not taken literally, of course. But these boys are very clever with what they did. How they ran messages back and forth from lower. So these boys, the cabin boys, were young. They were called powder monkeys or cabin boys. It was like a nickname for them. and they ran messages from below deck to above deck. Well, gunpowder from below deck to upper decks. They also, what they did is they ran information, so they didn't have, yeah, scared. They didn't have information like the phones and technology we have, so these young boys would deliver information to people. All right, the organization on board. Watchers were kept all day long. There was a larboard left side watch and starboard. Yeah, larboard is left side and starboard is right side. Watch the quartermaster ran one watch the sailing master. Most watchers. Yeah, like pages. Yeah, like pagers. Yeah, it's like a human pager. Most watchers were 4 hours long, except for the two dog watches, which were 2 hours long. The shorter watches prevented crew members from ending up with the same watch day after day. The quarter bill, which listed duties in battle, was written before any battles took place and posted in a public place on the ship. During an actual battle, most of the crew stayed flat on their stomachs under cover until the time came to engage with the target, with exception of those commanding the sailing vessels. Once the target was close enough, the captain often remained on the quarterdeck, poop deck, or near the tiller. The sailing master, boatswain mates managed the sailing of the vessel, and the rest of the crew handled the small arms and took responsibilities of the cannons. A gun crew was responsible for 2 cannons on the starboard and an opposite to cannon on the larboard. Ship boys carried cartridge and gunpowder up to the decks. All right, so you have a full, that's like what they do on the ships. Everybody worked together as a collective, and that is good. They had teamwork skills. That's good. Something that we need more of in the modern day, because a lot of times people have gotten too divided in recent times. Pirate articles were based on the chasse partie created on the buccaneer ships in the 17th century. The chasse partie determined the division of plunder among the crew, as well as other rules. Lori said, "Page is an old word for a human messenger. I was an honorary page at our state capitol building with my friends in ninth grade for one day." Thank you, Lori. I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it meant like a pager. But now you're talking about a page is an old word for a human messenger. Okay, thank you. That's really cool. You got to experience that for a day. Sometimes I'm a page between different YouTube chat rooms. Yeah. 18th century pirates built upon this concept and created their own version of articles of agreement. Before setting out their expedition, pirates wrote their articles alongside the election of a captain or quartermaster. The article needed the consent of every crew member, and all pirates swore to him, sometimes on a Bible, whatever it was at hand. During the election, a new captain men wanted another leader, often drew up separate oracles and sailed away from their former crewmates. Pirate democracy was flexible but unable to deal with long-term dissent from the crew. One description of the ritual of pirate code was Alexander Eckelmann's, published in 1678. Pirates called for a council to decide whether to get provisions, then they raided for supplies. Afterward, food rations were determined, with captains receiving no more than any man. A second council decided on the articles of agreement, which were put in writing. These articles of agreement served for four purposes. The specifically designated shares of the plunder for each crew member. Shares of the plunder were spelled out bases on each crew member's skills and duties. Captain Quartermaster typically received 1.5 of the shares. Gunners, boatswains, and shipmates, carpenters, and doctors. They had doctors too. Wow. Typically received 1.25 half of the shares, and all others share each. Some plunder went into the common fund to provide for severely injured men who had lost their sight or limbs. This term promoted loyalty among the crew because they knew they would take care of it. The value of the plunder was questionable. They would sell it before dividing the money amongst themselves. This prevented conflict between crew members and also prevented quartermasters from hoarding most of the valuable items. You're welcome, Lori. You're welcome. It has been a long day, and I'm nodding off, but we'll listen as long as I can. Thanks for the stream. Okay, you're welcome. And alright, and every man has a vote in the Bartholomew Roberts article. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment, has equal title in the fresh provisions of strong liquors at any time seized, and use of the pleasure unless a scarcity makes necessary for good of all. A vote of recitement. Every man can be called fairly in tune by lift, board, or prizes because over and above their proper share, they were the ones and occasions allowed of the ship cloths defrauded in company to value of the dollar, plate, jewels, or money. Marooning was the punishment of the robbery between them and another. They contented themselves with slitting ears or nose of him that was guilty, and set him on the shore on inhabited place, somewhere where he was sure to encounter the hardships. Okay. No person to game card dice for money. A lot of times they used to do gambling and things like that on the ships, and also they would get their plunder and go to the different shores and gamble. That was a way of entertainment for them. Alright, so that was just some different things about the pirates and how they some history about it and how they handled things on the ships. Okay, so that'll be it for tonight. Okay. So, I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. And everybody take care. See you tomorrow. Peace.